Thank you, Mr. Bhatia. First of all, I'll also thank my previous speakers to touch upon all the points on which I am very passionate, especially Mr. Bansal, because he's talking about the DC grids, and in the rural electrification programs, we are working with Terry only on this because he may not have also touched. There's another thing which I'll tell you, which is the DC brushless motors. Today, there are DC brushless motors and the fans and also the compressors. We are shortly going to introduce small refrigerators based on DC brushless compressors, and they will be consuming only around 50 watts of power, and they'll be working in the rural vaccination programs, there are a lot of things we are working with the government on, and these are the kind of opportunities. And nowadays, like he touched upon correctly, most of the things are electronic, and in the electronic everything works on DC. So DC is one thing which we must look in as a serious option for most of our application. AC has advantages for distribution, there are other advantages, but maybe for these kind of inaccessible areas like he was speaking about, this is exactly my topic. Actually, yesterday, if you were here, there was a special session only on the solar products, where we were primarily focusing on the electrification programs and the microgrid programs and the solar energy corporations and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy new specifications. So here, first I want to share with you the pictures and the real products to show to you what exactly a simple home lighting solution does. It is a transition from a traditional solar lantern also which we have. So I think first I'll just show you a solar lantern which we have developed for Terry, and how it addresses the problems of LEDs which most of the people are. You just show the illumination. Most of the LED products generally have a very high brightness. The problem is it creates glare. A lot of people in the rural areas were complaining about these programs. So rather than use high power LEDs, we tried to design a uniform luminaire based on low power LEDs, but with higher efficiencies. And now we have a product which far exceeds, which you will anyhow. So I think you can close this one. This is just to show, this is already possible, now we are doing it. And similarly, there are home lighting solution like this ones, which in the rural context, and even I would say that a lot of people in Delhi rural areas have approached us after seeing the demonstration. And I will, because my presentation is highly technical, but due to the shortage of time, I'll cut upon those technicalities, because even to design one product, you have to see there are so many testing, so many validation processes a solar system integrator has to go through. A solar system integrator's job is actually the toughest. He has to understand the characteristics of the panels. He has to understand the basic electrochemistries of different electrical storage medias and the interfacing electronics. So here you are talking about expertise in many technologies at the same time, which to a large extent do not exist in our country, because people are just assembling by buying certain components, and most of them do not have in-house testing facilities like we are proposing, and we are already having a lot of testing facilities in-house. So I think we can just move on to the next one. Yeah. So this is what a basic home lighting solution would look like. There is a solar photovoltaic module, a charge controller inbuilt into the system, an electrical storage media which is a battery. The battery could be sealed lead acid battery, lithium ion polymer, lithium iron phosphate. It all depends upon what characteristics, which area you are trying to target, and other features. And then at the end of the day you have a lighting solution. A lighting solution could be a directional light application. You have something to show, just like the light. And it could be an omnidirectional light solution. What we have to look at, because there is another speaker after me who is from an architectural background. This is what this industry needs today. Architects, engineers, scientists all have to sit together to develop these kind of solutions. For example, these are bulbs. Supposing you want to have lighting in some area, remote area, we have, actually there is another model in which we have the switch right here. You can install this unit in one central location in your home, a rural home, and you can have the lighting in different areas, and you can turn it on and off. And these kind of solutions, what we are offering, the total consumed DC power, measurable power, is only from 2 to 6 watts. Only from 2 to 6 watts. And you will be amazed to see the current brilliance and the illumination level of these lights. In addition, now coming to additional facilities like Mr. Bansal said. Most of the homes nowadays have a mobile phone. They don't need a mobile phone charging. I'll show you, we have, let's show you. There are USB ports here. There are USB ports here. And you can use these USB ports to charge any mobile phone that you have. So there is no need for you to have any electrical connection in those areas where there is no power, and you can still use the mobile phones and other facilities which normally people in the grid use. And later on, like the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is adding more features, we are offering very, very high energy efficient fans in DC. Based on, there is a new technology, it is called DC brushless motors. That DC brushless motor technology is an excellent, and in fact, it is not, only thing is, it was not adapted in the applications that we are talking about. Previously, all your laptops, all your even personal computers, the power supply used to have that brushless motor. But somehow that technology was never adapted by our fan manufacturers. The advantage of that technology is especially in a country like India and also an African continent, where temperature, humidity, dust are big problems. Because the DC motors work with the carbon brushes, everybody knows that. And that becomes a huge problem with the replacement of brushes, dust getting inside, humidity getting inside, all those things. So these DC brushless motors adapted from that computer technology, this is what we have done. And along with that, there is the latest technology. People generally use only electrical resistors to reduce the, actually they do not reduce any power. Whatever they reduce the speed, they are just burning and wasting in the resistors. We are providing pulse width modulated DC brushless motors along with this control. One of the top models we have generated, you'll be surprised, is only consuming 3 watts. Only consuming 3 watts. Now comes the driver part. The LED drivers themselves have efficiencies. Here, especially when we are talking about generating power from solar or any other renewable source, the efficiency of the driver inherently has to be good. The other good thing, Mr. Bansal, is, as you said, that LED semiconductor junction is a DC device, and DC electronics for DC LEDs are very simpler compared to AC. First, having an AC driver, because in the total electronic system, the weakest chain in the total electronic system could be any small component. The more complicated the system, more the chances of failure in that system. So using DCs for lighting applications makes perfect sense using LED technologies. But another aspect I'll also touch. Initially, our product was getting sold in the rural areas where there's no electricity. But we also came across a very interesting thing, that there are many, many areas, power-starved area, where electricity is available, but available for a limited number of hours, maybe about 6 to 8 hours in a complete day. And maybe the voltage is also not stable. But yes, similarly, you have your mobile phone chargers nowadays working from 85 volts. You can see it is written all. Most of the good mobile phone chargers are working from 85 to 265 or 285 volts AC. It is a switch mode power supply, and same type of a technology we have used to give an additional adapter for those areas where, because when they weigh the advantages of a solar panel vis-a-vis this adapter, which cost them very little compared to the solar panel, they bought the entire system but did not buy the solar panel. They bought the mains adapter because they were very happy that in those 6 or 8 hours when the electricity is available, though the time is not defined, they could store enough energy in the batteries which could be utilized for their day-to-day very nominal needs. Now here, in the solar photovoltaic modules, there are many different types of modules. Most of the people here are only aware of one type, which is the polycrystalline or monocrystalline. The problem is, like all electronic components, these solar panels also have their characteristics, their outputs, based on how much solar radiation is falling, at what angle it is falling, and also what are the temperatures like. So, as far as the monocrystalline and polycrystalline solar panels are concerned, they are more efficient at temperatures of 25 degrees and lower. But when you go higher than that, it is all given in the data sheets of the panel suppliers. You can read it. But problem is, system integrators do not put any thought to that. What is being mentioned here and how to use that information while designing your own system. There are new technologies where high temperature panels are available using a different technology. It is the technology which has adopted, in your calculators, you were having those thin film amorphous technology. Earlier it was not very efficient because the idea was to give a low cost solar panel to the calculators and solar wristwatches. But now the same technology has been upscaled on a very grand scale, and there are several projects on this technology working worldwide in the high temperature areas where they have demonstrated how a high temperature solar panel using this other technologies can be more efficient as compared to the other technologies. So I think because of the shortage of time, these are all related to what I have been speaking to you regarding the characteristics of solar panels. I think we'll just skip that. Only thing is, it is a very simple analogy which I'll explain to you. Supposing you own a car, the car takes 40 liters of fuel and maybe you can run 400 kilometers. Now if you run on the next day 200 kilometers, you have already burnt 20 liters of your fuel. Now if on the following next day you still want to go 400 kilometers, would you not fill your tank another 20 liters before doing that? Or otherwise, without filling 20 liters, would you be able to drive 400? No. Answer is no. But in case of batteries, this is what people expect. You drain out the battery for a certain capacity on a daily basis, but due to the poor system designing, poor system integrations, you do not put back that energy back into the battery. And as a result of that, people blame the batteries at the end of the day. They do not look at what their system is. So this is a very important point to look while you're sizing the system, that whatever energy you draw from the battery has to be replaced the soonest for getting a good performance from the battery, because battery is an electrochemical storage media, and all electrochemistry or any chemical reaction, they can be reversible, they can be irreversible. So for a rechargeable system, you want a reversible chemical action. And if there is any hindrance for not making the action reversible, then probably you will have problems with the batteries. These are some of the typical technical terms, so but it is basically important to understand how the batteries are rated. There is a certain current at which the batteries are rated, that if you draw so much of current from the battery, then this is the kind of backup capacity that you will achieve. This depends upon how much current you are drawing, and then based on that data, you know how much, whether you are drawing 25% on a daily basis, whether you are drawing 50% or 75%. And battery suppliers provide all these details data which shows you how many cycles of charging and discharging you can achieve under all these different conditions. Temperature also plays a very vital role in this, because any chemical reaction, it can be accelerated by higher temperature, and generally at a lower temperature the chemical reaction goes down. So similar is for the electrochemistry of the batteries. Previously this mistake was also being made in a lot of our specifications. People thought all lead acid batteries have similar characteristics. No, sorry, they don't. Even in the lead acid batteries, there are the flooded type in which you have to maintain the electrolyte level, there is another technology which is called seed maintenance free valve regulated lead acid battery. The complete is called SMF VRLA battery, and it is also sometimes referred to as AGM separator based battery. But this battery is not meant for deep cycling capabilities. So for the deep cycling such as in solar and wind, there is another battery, and also nowadays in the electric vehicles. Electrical vehicles which are mushrooming every day, you are seeing in Delhi, a lot of electric rickshaws and all these things are coming. Nobody can stop it. But you can facilitate and accelerate and make that process better. In this graph, we have just tried to show whatever I have been speaking, that depending upon how much power you draw from the battery, how many number of charging and discharging cycles are likely to be achieved with different chemistries of batteries. I think we can skip this, too technical. Yeah, there are too many technical things here. This is just to show you, whenever we want to integrate any battery into our solar system, the very first thing we do is, under the worst conditions, maximum load. Under the maximum load, we want to see what is the maximum load being drawn by our system. We stimulate that current and that power in our battery analyzer which we have imported from abroad. Based on that, it will give you a detailed curve like what we are showing in here, that actually how much of backup time you can expect from this battery when this much of current is being drawn. Only once you have this data, then you will be able to design the system which will be successful in your solar system. Another point which previously was missing, when the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, they are trying to shift from compact fluorescent lamp systems to the LED. In the compact fluorescent lamp system, there is a DC ballast. In that DC ballast, what happens is, you have a fully charged battery. When you draw current from a fully charged battery, it has X amount of power being drawn. But as the battery voltage keeps on coming down due to the load, nobody actually monitored how it is behaving, whether it is giving constant light or not. In case of CFL, electronic ballast, there was no such provision. There was no such provision in the previous Ministry of New and Renewable Energy specification that the constant light output has to be maintained. Whereas with LEDs, like everybody is talking, it is not possible, it is desirable. It is desirable to give a constant current driver, because sometimes, there is another problem which happens in LEDs. LEDs have an optimum current requirement and a tolerance. If you do not meet that criteria, the color temperature of the LEDs also sometimes shifts. So sometimes, when we are trying to dim the LEDs, the brightness may come down, but also if you are dimming it too much beyond what the manufacturer of the LED emitter has recommended, which most of the system designers do not pay attention to, even the color temperature will shift. I think I'll just, the charging, discharging characteristics of the batteries are temperature dependent. Ideally, any manufacturer should also monitor the temperature of the battery, and according to that, change the charging and discharging algorithms. There are defined charging and discharging algorithms in the IEC standards for different technologies of batteries. So in this case, what we tried to do, we just took one such battery. This is one battery, and all the electronics, you will be surprised, are integrated on this. It is all using microelectronics. The chip, everything is inside here, including the temperature sensor. All you have to do is connect the connector here and the panel here, and it's immediately start, and this battery is totally protected from all types of damages, and you can connect your different types of 12-volt loads in different locations. So in this case, we have done everything right on the battery surface itself. So I think that because the time is short, so I have to just cut it short there. Thank you.